Santa Barbara Channelkeeper is officially announcing today that we are going to undertake the review of the Northern Star LNG proposal that will take place at Platform Grace, just 10 miles offshore and very close to the boundary of the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. Obviously, the Santa Barbara Channel is a very special place, and we all know what can happen when things go wrong. Like in 1969, when Platform A blew out, leaving an 800-mile oil slick that threatened our local beaches, our wildlife, and our very way of life. Now, almost 40 years later, the channel is being targeted yet again for oil and gas industrialization. The Houston-based Northern Star company wants to build a natural gas terminal by converting Grace, an active oil platform, into an LNG berthing and regasification facility. Contrary to what most people think, LNG is not like the natural gas that comes from your stove. In addition to serious environmental impacts, people are only starting to understand the serious and significant safety risks that exist when natural gas is supercooled into LNG. It's the transition back from this forced liquid state into its natural gaseous state that the greatest risk for catastrophic accidents occurs. This is one of the number one reasons that the Federal Government Accountability Office recently concluded that LNG terminals are ripe terrorist targets and that the U.S. Coast Guard is inadequately prepared to protect them or the public in the event of a terrorist attack or a serious accident. Some mistakenly assume that if you put an LNG terminal offshore, that the environmental impacts disappear. That idea was the recently defeated BHP Billiton project, Cabrillo Port, demonstrated that that is clearly not the case. That project posed over 20 significant unavoidable environmental impacts, including 200 tons of smog-producing pollutants per year, a fact that the company desperately tried to hide from the public.
As you probably know, the EDC is a public interest law firm. We represent groups dedicated to environmental protection. We are in our 30th year, and one of our very first cases was to help defeat a proposed liquefied natural gas project up at Point Conception. And by defeating that project, we were able to preserve the western gate for the Chumash Nation. More recently, we represented the California Coastal Protection Network in response to the Cabrillo Port project that Kira mentioned, and that project was defeated a few months ago due to concerns about impacts to our coastal environment as well as to human health. So here we are, a mere few months later, and we're back at it. A new proposal situated off of the coast, right within the channel this time, on Platform Grace. This project requires approvals by various federal, state, and local agencies, including the U.S. Coast Guard and Maritime Administration, the California State Lands Commission, the California Coastal Commission, and others. It's a highly complex process. There are various approvals that are required, numerous laws that apply, and although it's a highly complex case involving legal, scientific, and policy issues, it's a fast-tracked process under federal law. These projects are governed under the U.S. Deepwater Port Act, which was intended to encourage a proliferation of these types of projects off the United States coast. What this means is that this fast-track process requires that, unlike other projects that people are familiar with, environmental review has to be completed within 240 days of when an application is deemed complete, and a decision on the license for the project has to be made within 330 days. That's less than 1 year, which is amazing when you compare that to, say, to a housing project that actually takes longer. This process puts an incredible burden on the public and local communities that may have questions or concerns about the project. Fortunately, because of our history, the Channekeeper and the EDC have some knowledge about the impacts that may result to our coast. And first, I just want to reiterate what we're talking about here. We're talking about a project in which the company will import natural gas that has been extracted from another country. So the natural gas is extracted somewhere, it's processed, it's super cooled to minus 260 degrees, which compresses its volume, makes it easy to load onto super tankers and ship across the oceans. This liquefied version of the natural gas then arrives on tankers at Platform Grace, which is immediately south of Carpinteria, about 10 miles off the coast. It is converted back into natural gas, so they have to convert the platform, put equipment on there to accept the liquefied gas, convert it back into natural gas, build new high-pressure subsea pipelines to bring that gas to shore. It will landfall at Mandalay in Oxnard, and then they will build about 60 miles of new high-pressure onshore gas pipelines from Oxnard to Santa Clarita. So it's a major industrial project. We are here today to announce that we have submitted formal comments to the lead federal and state agencies outlining our concerns about this specific project. And we do have copies of our letter available if you would like one. First, this project will use Platform Grace to offload and regasify the liquefied natural gas. This raises concerns about the integrity of the platform, which is old, and whether or not it's appropriate to use an oil platform for a project of this magnitude and size. Second, the project will result in global impacts, both the direct impacts from the extraction of the gas overseas, sometimes in sensitive environments, shipping it across the oceans, and then the impacts here along our coast. But also globally, it will impact climate change. LNG projects can emit tremendous amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. We commissioned a study for the Clearwater Port project and found that that project would emit 25 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year. That's the equivalent of about 5% of all greenhouse gas emissions in California, just to put that in perspective. With the state mandates that we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by about 25% by 2020, it's clear that this project would represent a step backwards for California in reaching those goals. Finally, we're concerned about the impacts to our channel here. The impacts to air and water quality, marine wildlife, public safety, recreation, and coastal views. One of our gravest concerns is about impacts to whales that use this channel area to migrate and feed. As you know, we've had 3 whales die recently from ship strikes. This project will add 278 huge tanker trips per year in the channel that will add the risk to migrating whales in our area. Our area is supposed to be protected for these types of species. We have a lot of endangered species, including some endangered whales that use the channel area. That's why we have the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary National Park. We're supposed to provide a safe haven for these types of animals, not expose them to further risks. In light of these and many other impacts from this project, we are asking agencies not only to review these impacts and disclose them to the public, but also to look at alternatives that can meet our energy demand without resulting in these impacts, such as conservation, efficiency, and using renewable sources of energy. So, in a sense, to sum it all up, what we're asking for is a deliberate, careful consideration of this project, make sure it complies with all laws, make sure we're aware of all the impacts before any decisions are made.
I just wanted to acknowledge on behalf of the board of Santa Barbara Channelkeeper what a huge step this is in taking on this legal and scientific review with the wonderful law firm of Environmental Defense Center. The Santa Barbara Channelkeeper is a part of an international alliance of waterkeepers, and the waterkeepers are dedicated to ensuring water quality. And we're one of about 115 keepers. We're thrilled to be here in Santa Barbara, and we're going to need a lot of support from our communities throughout Santa Barbara and Ventura to make this project the review that we want it to be. So thank you very much.